Guitars with another episode of Blues Creek Guitars YouTube videos. Glenn's arm behind the camera, and what we want to show you is how to upgrade the binding machines. The old Porter Cable 7310s, they're not a bad router, but there's a big disadvantage in that in order to make your adjustments, you have to remove this little locking screw back here, make an adjustment, lock it up, and it can be problematic. Now if you take notice, the base mount on the Porter Cable is at a slight angle. So I hope you can see, in fact maybe let's do this. When I put the square on here, you can see that this is not square, but this is. And that's because there is a little differential here. So, the new router that we're going to be putting on, and I really love these things. You can get them at Home Depot. There's two reasons why I like them. And the two reasons that I really like these are, number one, everything is at the front to adjust. And you'll see that once we set this up. The other thing is it's bolted on there, because even when you tighten this up, there's a little bit of slop. That's not a big deal, I'll admit, but you're going to see a big difference between this one and this one. The other thing that I like about the rigid, it is a variable speed, so I can control the speed depending upon what woods I'm using. So let me show you how to upgrade from the Porter Cable to the rigid. So the first thing we got to do is take this off. And the mounting plate on here, it's basically the same thing. The only difference is there's two different holes drilled. We have in the old one, and this is the lock that I was referring to, and those of you that have the 7310 know exactly what I mean. There's a little bit of play there, and it can take a little finesse. I used them for a number of years, and to be honest with you, I was quite happy with them. But this guy here is hard to beat. So I'm going to take this mounting plate off. Now for those of you who like to make your own stuff, you're welcome to do that. And you can see how easy that was to take off. The spacing of the holes here is 2 inch 320 thousandths, roughly about 2 3/8. It's a metric number actually. So here's what we're going to do. Alright, I have to change this plate out also. You can probably just take it and probably just remove it all together, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this out. We'll go back to that in a second. Now you can see it didn't come off all clean, but that's alright. I can take care of that in a second. I'm just going to take it to my belt sander and clean it off. So you're going to hear a little bit of noise. So as you can see, that wasn't very difficult. And the process is very similar on the Fleischmann. It's just a different mounting plate. It'll come off. On the Fleischmann though, you will have to take, at the end here, you can see this mounting plate here. Take that off, the 4 screws, flip it upside down, and re-screw it squared up. You'll be good to go. So, first thing I'm going to do is put these, and we have this designed to fit right into that plate. So now I'm going to put one, I'm just putting one in, and there's a reason for that. I'm only going to put one screw in for now, and there is a reason for that. You'll see in a minute. Okay. Because now I got to make sure everything is squared. So we can put this back together. And when I took this off, you saw me, these little black plastic flanges, when you push that down, releases that to come off of the glides. There, back together. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure everything is squared up. I want to make sure everything is where it needs to be. So for those of you, I can just put my square right on here. And I'm not using the square so much as I'm using this. That's parallel. So I'm taking a look at that, and that's right on the money. Then to check it for square the other way, put that on here like this and put that like this. The only trouble is these weren't always machined, so we're going to check square once that's put on. But I'm pretty sure with this line being correct, you're good to go. Because I do all of this on a milling machine. That's it right there. Now, once we get this done, okay, that's on there. The next piece is this. Now, if you take notice, the hole is offset, and that's offset by design. That will all be explained to you in a minute. Now we got to get the donut. We're going to prep this up. 2 5mm, or was it 8mm bolts, and you'll see what that happens in a second. Okay, so now we have the plate. The plate is now installed. We have that plate ready. Now I did have to modify a donut for my friend here because we're actually going to work on something else in a little bit. But it's okay if you expand your donut. If you look here very carefully, that's how much of a flat area I actually have and left on here. The rest is at about a 5-degree angle. This is a little bit over 1 1/4 or inch, and yeah, it's a little over 1 1/4. I think we're almost 1 1/2 inches because his cutter, he has a very oversized cutter because he's doing a very specific binding. But that's another video. I just want you to be aware that if you modify the donut, you may want to make sure you keep this flat. You will have to change the holes for the mounting base because the mounting bases are different. So now we have to set this up in order to get put to use. So I take the machine. We take the machine out of the little container. Now there's a couple of things that are going to have to come off of here because we don't really need them for our operation. And in a few seconds you're going to see why I like this rigid router so much better. I'm not condemning those of you with the Bosch. I'm not condemning the quarter cable. I don't even care if you use a Harbor Freight. You use what you use because it works. But for those of you that are having a lot of difficulty with your binding, this is going to take one of the variables out of the equation for you. So you'll be able to be just a little bit more accurate. So I have this out. I now have to take this little plastic chute out because we really don't need it. Okay, so now we took out that little chip feed thing. Now I'm going to put my my donut back on. I don't tighten that right up. I'm just going to sit this in, then I can get that centered up, put that in there like so. Now I can draw them up. And you see, I'm only using 2 screws. I don't need every screw. Now the next thing I want to do, this gets bolted. And remember I showed you how this bar is offset, because that short side, the short side, you can see there, has to fit in like this. If I don't, I'm going to catch here, and that's not going to help us any. So, that side goes down. And now you're going to get to see why this setup is so good over the other. Now, that actually has 2 bolts, and it's double bolted, so it's not going anywhere. Makes it a lot easier for my wrist. And it's not a very long process. Now, as you can see, we have 2 machined pieces of aluminum. The fact is, you could use anything that would be reasonably strong. A good piece of oak, a good piece of poplar. Just make sure that it's reasonably square. And that, I think, was an 8mm screw, or machine bolt, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, there ain't no moving. The other advantage is you have a variable speed selector right here. And this is my favorite part. I can open this up and you have very, very finite adjustment. Locked up and you're good to go. The only thing that I will tell you that you need to be aware of, right here, that little hex nut is a locking nut. So every now and then, when you throw this over, when you hit about, half an inch, you want to feel it kind of getting tight. That means that this is tight and snug, it isn't going anywhere. No more of the jerking up and down. You can control your RPM on your cutter. That's your on-off switch. And that's as simple as you can do it. Now, for those of you that will say, why do you want a different speed for your cutter? Well, there's 2 reasons. Number 1 is the size of the cutter that you're going to be using. In this case, Glenn just bought what we call a fractional bit set. You can get them at companies like Harbor Freight, Grizzly, probably Sears, and as you can see, it's a much larger cutter. So that means that this is spinning at your 14,000 RPM. The circumference is bigger, so the actual cutter speed is higher. Now, depending upon what kind of wood you're dealing with, hardwood, spruce, whatever, I like to cut the spruce at a little bit slower speed than I do a hardwood because you can burn. So, something that you're going to figure out as you go and play with it. My recommendation, you can hear it, you'll hear this thing change when you turn it on. And just play with it. High speed is good, but concentrate on this one thought. Whenever you're cutting material, I don't care if it's metal or it's wood, you're creating heat. So the heat's going to go in one of three places. It's either going to go into the work, which would be your top, back, or side. It's going to go into the tool, which is your cutter, or it's going to go into your chip. You want to try to find the speed that you can find that the heat goes into your chip. And when you're cutting it, you can actually put your hand out there and feel, and you'll be able to feel if the chip's hot or cold. Cut a little bit, turn it off, feel, is your wood hot? Is the tool hot? It will be natural that the tool will warm up a little bit, but if it's hot, then you're probably cutting too fast or you're not feeding fast enough. It's all about a feed rate. So that is one big reason why I like a variable speed. So with that, hope that clears up that question. So you can see you can upgrade from any of the other routers to this. Actually, if you buy this at Home Depot, it comes with a lifetime warranty, which is quite commendable. And if you ever got to do a cabinet, you got a router for doing your laminate trimming. So that is how you will swap out one router to the rigid. And again, I cannot recommend this high enough. I believe in them so much. You can see I have them in my own units, and it's the way to go. So from my shop to yours, I hope you find this little bit of tidbit information useful. You can upgrade to whatever you need. And again, thank you. Shoot. Okay, now, pardon me.
Excuse me.